Okay, well, welcome to Slingshot. And first thing that we wanted to do is just kind of introduce you to the program. Hopefully you're all aware this is the pilot program of Slingshot. So we are going to ask for a lot of feedback from you guys. It can be interactive during class, or if you're not comfortable speaking aloud in front of groups, feel free to email me, giving you my email address there. But the CS account will also work just fine. So tyoungblood@cs.ua.edu. And we really would like feedback, positive or negative, really about the program and the purpose of it. We're trying to get hands-on skills that aren't necessarily taught in your theory classes. Again, I come from a different background, so I really do need a lot of feedback from you guys because I did not go through the CS program here at the University of Alabama. I went to ITT Tech, and from what I've been told, it is vastly different. So you guys will probably just get a nice little mini version of that from what we're doing here, because that's the background that I come from. So you've either volunteered or been selected to come, so hopefully you will be able to gain a good bit from it and also contribute as well, because hopefully this will be a very productive program to help everybody get more up to date, so that as students you can contribute more, but also when you go out into the work environment that may or may not be CAPS, you'll be a little more comfortable in your skill set. So again, these are very, very much hands-on applied skills as opposed to a lot of theory and so forth. So most of what we're going to cover is specific to the projects that we work on at CAPS. So if you have other stuff that you feel like needs to be covered, you submit the ideas and so forth to us, and we'll evaluate it and see if it's something that we can incorporate. Obviously, we're limited to a few weeks at a time, but at any time, after the program's over, y'all feel comfortable coming to me. I'm pretty easy to find most of the time. So the other thing that we want to do is kind of let you guys get to know us a little better. I know in some of the meetings it came up that a lot of the students aren't that familiar with the full-time staff, and specifically, as I said, our skill sets are a little bit different. So some of us, Carrie for instance, is very good at UI and design work, and I am not, and that's being very, very gracious, because my design skills are pretty wretched. So but we all have different skills, and so I think this will be a good opportunity for you guys to kind of see a little bit of what we do, and maybe introduce you to some people who can help you if you have a specific problem. So I do think that aside from Matt, people are a little bit divided between full-time and part-time or students. So maybe you guys mix it up a little bit next week. Get to know everybody. But hopefully, if nothing else, you'll get to know me. And I'm really good at introducing other people to strangers. So especially Adam, because I think it's important that everybody knows who Adam is if they come in our room, so I make sure they know them. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions about Slingshot or why we're doing the program or anything like that? Nobody's mad that they're here, right? I mean, this is.
No, I'm pretty angry.
I'm only here for just 10 more minutes.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, hopefully, you guys. I mean, and I know that it's been stated in several emails, but just to be clear, this is considered work time, and so the work that you do on your assignments and projects and stuff is considered part of your work time for CAP. So this isn't intended to be on your own. Not that you can't work on it on your own, obviously, but as long as you're within your scheduled time.
Oh, about that, if any of your supervisors give any crap about that, please direct them to Derek or me, or let us know if they're like hounding you about it, cause they've been notified of that.
For months.
They were told also, if you have a problem with your students being in this program, let us know, so they had a chance to say something and none of them did. So, y'all shouldn't have to deal with that.
All right, excellent. Well, one of the tools that we use in our development, specifically our group, and I don't know if everybody else does, I know Matt York does, but we use Get in order to do version control type processes. So we are going to go over Get, and Get is used to be my nemesis, and thanks to a pretty intensive little course with Matt York and a lot of beating over the head from Carrie and Adam, I have come to accept it as a reality, and I do feel like it is an amazing tool, and the better I get at it, the less I hate it. So
begrudgingly, it is a better architecture.
it really is.
Stockholm
Yeah.
syndrome.
Well, that may be it, but no, I mean, it really went. I don't know. To me, it was overwhelming at first, and I came from obviously in my education background. Source control wasn't even mentioned because everything you did was all your work, all the time, and it was on your local machine, and nobody else had to touch it, and so there was never any real need for it. And then the place that I went to first, when I first left teaching, they used Source Safe, and so it was a little bit different because it just wouldn't let you touch anything anybody else was editing, and so it was real safe. But also it was difficult to work with. And then when I first came here, we used subversion control, and it was better than Source Safe, but also we found that it had some limitations as well. And so finally, we are using now Get. And so if I fight with this a little bit, you guys, please don't fault the tools, because it is, again, something that I am still adapting to. So, but again, I will say that it is definitely the best tool that I've used to date. So, one of the things that we've got here, and I have these slides. If anybody wants a copy of them, I'm not very good at making slideshows, so I'm kind of throwing my little notes out there or whatever. But if you don't want to be taking notes, feel free. I'll give you a copy of these. But we're going to use Get to keep track of our changes. Has everybody in here used some type of version control, or do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. So as a team, we're working on a project, and I'm working on a piece of it. You're working on a piece of it. We need that whole project to work together as one. So some way we have to keep track of everything I did and everything you did. And so what Get allows you to do is it allows you to actually have a copy of your project. So it keeps parallel versions. One of the things that it does is that rather than just having one copy of the project and then everybody making changes to it, Get is different because it'll allow you to make everybody have their own copy of the project, but you still can set up one central copy that everybody treats as the main version of your project. And so that way everybody can see the changes that everyone else makes. But once you clone, and a clone is just a copy of the project. So, I mean, we know what cloning is, right? That's a typical word. And so you just make a copy of the project, then you have it and you make your changes. Now, some projects with subversion control, when you commit your changes, what that actually does is it sends a copy of your information to the main repository that says, hey, this change was made, so forth. With Get, committing a change is actually just saving it there locally for you, for your copy of it, yes.
So Git is similar like Mercurial or HG, something like that?
Yes, we use those servers to host our Get files. Is
Yeah,
that
and
correct?
right.
Yeah.
I think now that you're making sense to me. So
Okay.
and SVN is the one that you're talking about, subversion control, right?
Yes. Yes, that's it. And I think I use Tortoise. I don't know if there was anything else, but that's the little client that I use to do all the SVN. Is that what you guys have
Yeah,
used
the
for that?
Tortoise.
Yeah.
SVN Tortoise.
Mhm. So, and Git has different clients that we use. We use, well, I use all sorts of things. Yeah. What is it, source control? And then you can also GitHub is also another area where you can go and do things online. So, and what's the other one?
Source tree.
Source tree, yeah. And then isn't there something else?
There is a Tortoise
just
Git
clients.
on
There's a Tortoise
OS
Git. Yeah,
10
they're
at
clients
least
to
on Mac.
access
There's
it.
Mercurial too, I think.
Yeah, Mercurial.
Oh, we're talking about different
Mercurial
technologies for
is
source
another
control?
version control system similar to Git.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There you go. See, these are the things that I'm so glad that I have everybody else in the room for. Okay. So, and in any case, we will be using GitHub actually to access our files and upload them because everything will be done on the internet. We don't have to have our private servers for that and so forth. So, one of the things that is actually in your assignments tonight is to create an account if you don't already have one. If you do, then look, our little assignment's already halfway done. So, and I don't plan to like stress everybody out. I want to give you some practice doing what we're doing. Hopefully, in your job, you'll get a decent amount of practice doing most of this stuff. But we're going to give you some examples and show you how to do the stuff that you're being asked to do or potentially going to be asked to do on a regular basis. So, with the GitHub, we won't actually none of our stuff is on GitHub, right? It's just the
Only
open
shared.
source stuff.
Yeah, only shared stuff.
Yeah. So, in any case, that kind of. Does anybody have any questions about why we're going to use Git, or have I been plain enough about Git? I know that I'm not.
Git or source control in general.
Yeah.
What is the difference between like Git itself and a client? What does that mean?
Well, why don't you explain that, Carrie?
Okay, so like a client allows you to access Git, and there's like user interfaces that go over Git. GitHub is a perfect example. Like it's actually a really extended UI over Git. Git in its basis is a command line tool that allows you to do these things. So you have a central repository, which is generally going to be hosted on a server other than where you're coding. And then it allows you to push changes from different locations. That's Git. A client is just a user interface that wraps around Git and makes those things easier. Instead of jumping into a command line and saying git push blah 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 or whatever command that you would send to it, you have like a user interface that makes that a little bit easier because this is definitely going to be intimidating at first. So the user interface is just aimed to make it a little simpler and do some things behind the scenes that you're actually not going to see, like with like commit checking and stuff like that. So
Yeah. And in Visual Studio, they have some of the tools available that you can do. Like you can do your commits and so forth in Visual Studio. I know that some of the people in this room that I'm on teams with don't particularly prefer that method. And I originally, when I first started adapting to Git, I would use the tools in Visual Studio. But I found that once I gave it up and started using Source Tree, I stopped having quite so many conflicts. And so I think Source Tree probably just manages it better. But just coming from the other side of it, I'm not a huge fan of a bunch of command line stuff. I like a query interface. And so when Carrie and I were working like on contract side work, she's like, oh yeah, we're going to use Git and da da da. And she's like showing me all this stuff. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'll just nope. And so I downloaded the GUI for it, and I messed everything up on a regular basis. And finally, she just forbade me from committing. So She was like, you just show me what you did and I'll fix it. And I was like, okay. So, and then, you know, eventually we started having to do it for real work. And so I had to actually learn what I was doing. But for probably the first few months, I had her sit with me as we did it. And
Yeah, I have screwed up a lot of projects just updating and commenting. Oh my god. So it's like one evening I commented and then next day everybody else was fixing what I screwed up.
Oh.
yeah. Well, I mean,
That's not a problem.
especially, I mean, when you're working with real projects, then yeah, it can get hairy. And that was one of the reasons that I kind of like to be babysat initially.
Me
Yeah.
too. I try not to comment on my own. I ask somebody to do that for me.
Yeah, but the more you do it though, like the more you like, and I'm pretty comfortable now. I don't ask for permission before I commit changes. I push to production now with only asking Adam if that's okay. So you know, but you know, it is something that you need to learn how to do. And once you do though, it's not that difficult. It just is kind of trying to actually understand what's going on, because I have my Y branch slide up here, and I'm gonna kind of deviate from this for just a minute, and we'll go over some other stuff. But branches are just different versions of your copy of the project that you're working on. So we typically will have a master branch that is sitting out there, and in our world, a master branch kind of relates directly to what's on production and what's running out there in the real world as a production site. And then we also have a development branch, which is another version of it, and sometimes they're exactly the same, assuming nobody's asked for any changes and there haven't been any, you know, requests and no problems. They're exactly the same. The development branch is identical to the production branch. But, you know, when a customer calls and they're like, hey, we were thinking this nice, neat new feature would be really cool. So rather than going in and tearing apart our nice copy that we know works and is safe, we have what we refer to as our development branch, which is another copy of it that at this point is identical. And then we do a branch, right? We go into this other our separate copy that's the development branch, and we can make all the changes that we want. And if we totally screw everything up, it's okay, because we have our shiny master branch that's sitting up there that hasn't been touched, and it's fine, it's still pure, right? So, but on that development branch, when we're down there working, when we get it working and everything is fine, and we've pushed it out to our little development server, and our client has tested it, and they're like, yeah, that works great, everything's fine, you know, and we're sure that that part of it is working, then what we can do is we can take those changes and push them back up to master. And then now master has the new changes in it, but we have the opportunity to check everything before we actually mess with it. So that way we always have a good copy of our project. Or also, you know, if you're messing around with some new stuff and you maybe mess up the commit, you know, as long as you're on the development branch, which I've also had that problem of trying out new fancy things on our master branch, and I've gotten my hand popped about that a few times, but I'm much better at it. And again, it's one of those things you just have to keep doing until you get used to. So we're talking about all this stuff. Let me I'm gonna switch over here. I set up a password on this thing, and then I switched over to having a Microsoft account, and I always type the wrong password in every time I do it. All right. So here we are in the CAPS Slingshot, and Matthew, you answer this question. When they create their accounts, do you have to manually add them to this, or?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you want them to write to you, or do you want them to write to me, and I'll give you a list?
However, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
If you want to aggregate them, just because you'll be probably the person that would be in the
Make
room with
calls
them.
to, yeah.
Right.
That'd be good, and you can aggregate them and send them to me.
Okay. And if we
But I can
do
give you
this
privileges
tonight,
to do this
everything.
too.
Do what now?
I can give you privileges to do this too. Like
Oh,
you can add them
excellent.
too. So
Okay,
we might
yeah.
just do that.
That might be easier. I mean, it's up to you, whichever.
I think we can do that.
But if we do it tonight, you know, we'll be here. So we're going to create accounts for everybody, and then we're going to give you access to this repository so that you can get in here and see the stuff that we have. And one of the things that's up there is the syllabus. And I realized earlier today that this hadn't been updated in like ever. So I don't think I even created it. So I was like, oh, okay, well. So I'll update that tonight and get a better copy of it. But then this is just a sample project, and one of your assignments that I have is that we're gonna have you like clone this repository and check it out, and that way you can make changes on it. And I should be able to come and you can commit it back to your own branch, and then I should be able to go and check it online. So this will be a new tool for me learning how to do all this, because I don't use GitHub very much, but I have it set up with my source tree, so I'm hoping that I think I just have to clone your repository and it won't be a big deal. But yeah, this will be fun, tiptoeing through all that. I'm like, I didn't get your homework because I don't know how to check it. But hopefully we won't have any trouble with that, and everything will just go fine, and I'm very optimistic about it. So, all right, well, let's look at this our directions here. Where you have the option, you guys can see this, yeah. So if we had a new project that we were creating, we could create a brand new repository. That is not going to be something you guys do generally, because you aren't going to be handed probably brand new projects or anything. Usually you'll probably be grabbing something. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah. You'll be grabbing something somebody else has already created. So that's kind of what we're going to do here. So this display the month names is not something that is very useful, but it was something that I created just so we would have a repository out there that we could get a hold of. So, all right. Now, if I'm looking here, you can see that I have a clone and desktop option, and then I also have a clone URL. And for our projects that we're working on, they're going to come from, what is it, hd.caps, whatever. And so we'll take it from there, but here you can use this this clone URL if you're using SourceTree. And have you guys had a chance to download SourceTree yet? Okay, excellent. And I am also super familiar with Windows 8, so totally know how to get to everything, right?
Yeah, just start typing.
Just where I'm looking at that stupid search window.
Yeah.
Just type. Yeah, you should start
Anywhere?
typing.
Yep.
That's annoying.
It's
Okay.
magic.
Pull up that little thing in someone else's Windows, yes.
Thank you. I knew you showed me how to do it the other day, and yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So here's SourceTree, and SourceTree is one of our clients that we use to manage our Git repositories. All right, and I get this about every time that I log on. I'm just gonna wait. Not saying you should do that. All right. So here, if we do clone new, we have this option to create a brand new repository. And hopefully I didn't. All right. And you can tell it where to go. I've done so many things. I guess this is not on the laptop, so okay. I'll say Slingshot and this will be good. All right. So I'm telling it I want you to take this project, and I want you to put it right here in this destination path. So this is where it's going to go, and this will be where my local copy of the repository will go. There are some advanced options. I don't think I'm going to choose any of those. And I'm just going to hit clone. And that is not energy failure. Okay. Let me just do a new program here. I'm sure I can do that with the So now we have our local copy of our Slingshot. And if you'll notice, the branch that we have is called master. And by default, that's the main one that you're going to have. Now, I can change the files over here. And if we go back here, let's look in here and see. We see Slingshot examples. And this is the actual project that that was there, located in GitHub. And so I can open it up now and run it, but I mostly just wanted to show you the files. And one of the things that gets added is your git ignore file, and they do a pretty good job of managing. This is probably one of the main things that I still really don't know how to set up correctly, but it's very important. It is pretty crucial to your project working, and again, if you're not the one creating the project, you don't really have to worry about it because it should be managed ahead of time for you. But the git ignore, it controls what does or does not get pushed when it changes. So for instance, when you run a project, it builds and creates your executable files and things like that, and also pulls in like your DLLs. And that doesn't need to get pulled in every time. Like all those files don't need to get pushed, because when it runs, it's going to get what it needs for the published version. So the git ignore, you can tell it, hey, this is a Visual Studio, I guess, like, I don't, do you do like 2013 project, or do you tell it is like what language or whatever? You can tell it like what kind of project it is, and it'll go, okay, well, you're not going to need these files by default. So it'll exclude certain files for you. Wasn't it, not, I hate to call out names, but I think it was Jack that like was just ready to tear his whole stuff apart because his git ignore wasn't right. And I've had the exact same problem. I mean, it's just like, and that was one of the things that was like hardest for me is, and I still have a file that shouldn't be included every time it's some log file that on one of our projects, it still wants to push it every time it changes, and it doesn't need to get updated. So anyway, one of these days though, we'll figure out how to get that sucker out of there. And but the git ignore files get added. Don't delete them. They're very important. It's very, very good for Git. And even though it's outside of your project, Git's going to use it to control what it actually pulls in every time, and what it tracks basically when you're changing files. So if we want to, we can open these, and I'll open it from here actually. I guess I can just go ahead. I'll open this project. Has anybody here not used Visual Studio before? Put your hand up here. So everybody in here has used Visual Studio. What version are you guys using?
13.
2013? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Have you used it aside from downloading it for this class though? Is that typically what you guys are coding in? Yeah? Well, that means that most of the rest of the class will be really easy, because that's kind of the other part. I mean, I'll still go over it, but it'll make it easy to just sort of fly through. So, all right. As you can see, I have a notice here about ReSharper, and one of the things that I want to do is make sure that you guys are aware of our licensing with ReSharper, and so you have the opportunity to use the software while you are here and learn it, and it is amazing. It is so awesome. And if you don't believe me, you can just ask Adam, and he knows all the shortcut keys, and he is our ReSharper evangelist, and he has converted Carrie. She's on board. She's his little what do you call it? Those people in the temple that's the priestess. Yes, that's you. You're the priestess for ReSharper. And sorry. In any case, I love ReSharper. I just don't know how to use it fully yet, and so I still I know it'll do stuff, and then I have to be like, okay, wait, what's the shortcut keys needed to do this? And so I am in the process of converting, I guess, but we really need you guys to know about ReSharper as part of our license. So there is our 2 cents about that. Please do make sure you download it and try it out. And any questions you might possibly have, you can direct to Adam Ferguson, and he will help you out and probably give you a sermon on top of it. No, not really, but just a little, plug there for ReSharper, and really all of JetBrains software, right? I mean,
Everything it makes great.
yeah, everything that they do is great. So you should go check out their products because they are developers developing for us, and so that's really a good thing for us as developers to have software that makes our job easier.
They're free for students, I think now.
Say again?
They had a thing that's free for students.
Free for students, yeah. Yeah, I think they really want to get you on board while you're still in school, and I mean they show you all kinds of stuff. I mean, one of the things that it will do is it'll be like, hey, we noticed that you were trying to do this, and you can do it in 2 lines or
It
3.
really does kind of make you better. It will show you things you didn't necessarily know about the language. I mean, because it's analyzing your code as you write it, making suggestions.
Mhm.
It makes
You
you
don't have
so
to take-
lazy.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
I love
Well,
it.
Write
as
out the
coders, you're really not a good programmer if you're not lazy.
Right,
Because
exactly.
the idea is to do it as simple as possible. So, that's my opinion anyway. Yeah, good now you're in the right field, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just making a computer do stuff for you. So, I mean, that's all you're doing is making a computer do stuff for you. So, the better you are at making machines do work for you, then the better programmer you are. All right. So here I have my project open in this beautiful piece of software known as Visual Studio, and so I'm going to go in and edit it and make a change. This is super fancy. This is a very high-level, well-written piece of software here.
Make the font just a little bit bigger, just
No,
so.
you guys don't need to see it.
The camera is HD, but it's not.
Typically, the bottom left corner, there's like a.
Control plus.
You do that too.
Well, I tried to do that, but I guess I hit it the wrong. Control plus isn't working.
See the bottom left where it says 100%?
Mm-mm. I don't know what you're talking about. Thanks.
Well,
How
150.
about that?
Well, 150
Yeah.
should be fine.
Well, that wasn't one of the options drop down, I don't think.
You
Oh, there we go.
Type in all that.
There you go.
That'll work.
I know, I was just kidding. Okay. All right.
It wasn't an option.
Was it not? No. Okay. I really want this to respond the same way my Mac keypad does, and it's close, but
But
it's
not
not quite there, and so I get frustrated real easily. All right, so this is just a project, and it's completely irrelevant to what we're actually going over now. But here is a all right, and it's a plus. Especially timing. Yeah. Okay, there we go. That'll look good. And we can run it. This should have nonsense in there. Alright. So our project runs, it's great, and this is exactly the changes that we wanted to make. However, one thing that I didn't do, which was the thing that I told you needed to do, is I didn't switch to development. I made my changes directly there to master.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Yeah. So
This is totally scripted.
yeah, totally. And so I can, I can stash these changes and revert and then change branches and then redo them. But I'm not going to do all that because while I know those words, I don't know how to do that. So, I fully know what I'm supposed to do. I just don't know how to go about doing it. But I've done this often enough that I've heard them say, "You can stash those changes." And so that's a good thing to be aware of, that it will let you do that. If you make a whole bunch of changes, you can stash them, you can like put them aside, and then it doesn't get applied to whatever you're doing. You can change branches and then pull back the changes that you've made. So as you can see, Git is very powerful in allowing you to do that. And but for this exercise, I'm just gonna push my changes to the master branch, even though you should not do that if that's what happens. And yeah, especially if you didn't mean to be on the master branch, really don't push your changes there. So, all right, but I'm living life dangerously, and I encourage you guys to do so as well. Any chance you get.
Real quick, what pushes to the master branch are appropriate? I know you probably, I mean, you talked about it a little bit, just like, what are
To the master branch.
Mhm.
Well, I would say anything that was maybe, do you have an answer really, like what I would do, or
I don't know,
was there
what's
something
CAPS's
specific
policy
that you're looking
on
for?
pushing to master?
Any and all.
Any?
No,
I mean,
that
it's a good
really
point. I don't know if
kind
we
of
have,
is.
I mean, do we
Yeah.
have
Yeah, I mean,
team specific?
specifically, like on our stuff, we don't push anything that's not like. I mean, I would do things like we have these reports that we generate, and they have the StimulSoft stuff. And if there's like a typo on one of those, I will change that sucker and post it real quick without thinking about it, because it's not anything that's
Like a
gonna.
hot fix?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hot fixes. Anything like that that's like